imagine.
The movie opens nostalgically, depicting a primitive society living with leopards. The panthers seem friendly with the people, who have their civilization, including what appears to be a punishment system. For now, a woman is tied to a tree and left to her fate. At dawn, one of the panthers approaches her, with no defense from her side. Later, the woman herself enters the leopard's cave, suggesting a connection between the two creatures. Sometime later, the scene shifts to the city, where we meet the protagonist, Irena Gallier. She is a young woman who was raised by adoptive parents and is, for the first time since childhood, meeting her older brother Paul, who lives in New Orleans. Paul meets Irena when she arrives at the airport and drives her to his apartment. Paul lives alone with only his housekeeper, female, pronounced female-I, to look after him. The housekeeper warmly welcomes Irena, and a while later, dinner is served. At dinner, we sense a strange awkwardness between Paul and the female, but it is not clarified at this point. Afterward, Paul invites Irena upstairs to show her some things he kept from their childhood. Their grandfather used to own a circus, and the children have vivid memories of it. Paul treasures some circus instruments, but when he shows them to Irena, he begins to act seductively and touches her inappropriately. Irena ignores it, but that same night, we see Paul sneaking upstairs with sinister thoughts. The female sees him, but does not stop him. When he reaches Irena's room, she is sleeping, and he hops on the edge of the bed, purring while staring at her. Elsewhere, a hooker enters a motel and takes off her coat. She is there because Paul arranged to meet her at a cheap hotel. She enters his room and starts to undress, but despite her seductive appearance, Paul does not respond and does not reveal himself. Soon, the hooker finds some yellowish substance and is disgusted by it, but then, from under the bed, a black leopard emerges and pulls her toward itself. The woman screams and crawls to escape the room. Fortunately, she does, but her leg is badly hurt. Soon the authorities arrive, and while investigating camera footage, they spot the black leopard trapped in the room. Curator Oliver Yates and his assistants, Alice Perrin and Joe Cray, from the New Orleans Zoo, are called to capture the Black Panther and put it behind bars. Thus, Oliver prepares a ladder from outside to try and shoot the predator down from the window. After some difficulties with his aim, Oliver shoots it down, and he returns inside with his teammates to escort the panther from the hotel. Back to Irena. She wakes up to find Paul missing from the house. With Paul gone, Irena decides to spend her first full day in New Orleans seeing the sights. First, a taxi ride through the French Quarter, then a stop at the zoo, where she is fascinated by the new panther. So fascinated that she is still there sketching him 1.5 hours after the zoo has closed. When Oliver startles Irena, she drops her sketch pad and runs for the trees, winding up on top of one. Oliver coaxes her down. After noticing that Irena feels excessively warm, Oliver takes her inside and puts a cool cloth on her forehead. Thinking her exhaustion might be due to hunger, they decide to get something to eat. During the dinner conversation, Oliver learns that Irena is looking for a job and hires her to work in the zoo's gift shop. Irena's first day on the job is memorable. Alice introduces herself to Irena, and the two get lunch. A strange woman calls Irena mi hermana, my sister. That afternoon, as Irena continues looking at the Black Panther, it suddenly goes crazy, and when Joe tries subduing it, the panther graphically rips Joe's right arm off, and he quickly bleeds to death. By the time Oliver gets back with his gun to kill the beast, the panther has disappeared, and there is blood everywhere. Oliver tells Alice that they need to alert the police that the leopard is gone. When Irena gets home that evening, Paul returns, but he no longer seems so brotherly. He claims that he was in jail during his time away. He tries to get Irena to have intercourse with him, telling her that he's the only one who can touch her, and she's the only one who can touch him. He also points out that he has seen her with Oliver and how her body burns around him. He says she may think it's love, but it's blood, and that she is no different from him. However, Irena tells him she is nothing like him.
I'm not like you!
Irena knows only that she is attracted to Oliver and wants nothing to do with having sex with her brother, so she runs off, but the way she escapes is unsettling, as she can jump and hop on anything like a cat. Paul also follows her, making the same suburban cat jumps, but fortunately, Irena flags down a police car down the street and approaches them for rescue. However, just as she turns around to see Paul, he is nowhere to be found. The police find no one chasing her, so they ask if she wants to report it. Just then, the police dog begins going nuts, prompting a random search of the area and the house as well. Shortly after, the police dog leads them to Paul's basement, where they find a cage, chains, and parts of several bodies. A check on Paul Gallier reveals that he's been in and out of mental institutions since the age of 10, when his parents killed themselves. They were circus performers, and Paul grew up around big cats. Suspecting that Paul might have been the one keeping the escaped Panther, they call the zoo. Oliver and Alice come over. The policeman suggests that Paul intended to kill Irena, advising her to find someplace else to live. Oliver offers her a place to stay with him while the police take the female to the station for a deeper investigation. The next day, Oliver takes Irena to a friend of his who lives in a river cabin. His name is Yates, and he takes care of the place. Irena is happy to feel safe once again. For a while, Oliver and Irena spend time together fishing and going out on a boat, which brings them closer and closer to one another. Elsewhere, at a cemetery, we see Paul meeting another woman who seems to be interested in him. He takes pictures of her and begins his seduction process. Back at Irena and Oliver's, they are getting closer, and this time, Oliver makes a move and kisses her. Irena responds the same, and the connection between the two is intense. At night, however, Irena wakes up strangely and leaves the cabin alone. She wears a thin pajama set, which she soon takes off completely before wandering into the forest. Irena is becoming more and more troubled. As if the situation with Paul wasn't bad enough, she finds herself running on all fours after a rabbit. Her vision entirely from a cat's perspective. In the meantime, we see Paul sleeping with the woman he met, and she doesn't know what's about to happen. He tells her he has arousal problems, and she succumbs to his flaws. Back at Irena, she returns to the cabin, but her mouth is covered with blood. She snaps the light away from her face when Oliver tries to check on her, suggesting she is also a strange woman like her brother. Back at Paul's, the next morning, he wakes up to find himself unclothed in the bathroom. The same yellowish substance is near him, and he doesn't seem surprised by it. In fact, he disgustingly eats it. When he exits the bathroom, we realize that he is the one turning into the leopard and killing the hookers, using them as prey. This time, the woman he met is mutilated and covered in blood, lying lifeless on the ground. Soon, the hotel reports the incident, and Oliver comes to the scene. Later that day, Irena decides to leave Oliver, realizing that she may not be different from her brother Paul. She is also falling in love with Oliver, and he is with her, but she tells him that she cannot make love to him. Oliver reassures her, saying that it is not important now because he loves her and only wants to take care of her. Irena changes her mind and agrees to be with him, but just then, we see Paul sneaking up on them, watching with vengeful eyes. A week goes by, and the search for the escaped Panther has proven fruitless. Oliver and his team are disappointed, and as he and Alice return home, she expresses concern about his recent obsession. Alice is also in love with Oliver, which is evoking feelings of rivalry in Irena. In the meantime, Irena is at home when she senses something strange outside the window. Something is lurking outside, and suddenly Paul jumps into the house, scaring her. Paul feels that he can no longer go on like this. Once more, he tries to have sex with her, begging her to understand that they need each other, just as their parents did, to stay pure. It's the only way they can live, he explains, just as their parents, who were also brother and sister and lived together as husband and wife, needed to make love to avoid killing another victim. Irena and Paul are descended from a line of cat people, individuals who turn into panthers after mating and who must kill to take human form again. Irena knows nothing about this side of her ancestry, story, she is still a virgin, so she has no idea what sex will do to her. On the other hand, Paul has been living with this knowledge for years and has worked out a system where he uses hookers as his prey. He also tells her that Alice and Oliver are meant for each other and that she should leave Oliver for her well-being. Irena refuses to let him control her life choices, so she stabs him with a piece of broken window glass and runs away. With a scar on his hand and blood dripping, Paul transforms into the panther he always turns into. Meanwhile, Alice and Oliver return to check on Irena. However, when Oliver goes upstairs, he is confronted by the suburban cat, aka Paul. Oliver is soon attacked by the panther and screams for Alice to get the shotgun. Alice retrieves the shotgun and quickly shoots the panther, causing it to jump out of the window. Irena then walks out and witnesses her brother's death. The next day, when Oliver autopsies the panther, he is horrified to find a human hand in its stomach, after which the entire panther spontaneously disintegrates with a nasty smoke and smell that causes Oliver to pass out. The next day, Irena heads straight to the jail to visit a female and ask her questions about what she can do. The female tells her that it doesn't matter where she goes and that she must live in fear as she cannot escape her cat nature. Disappointed, Irena goes to the train station to go as far away as possible. While on the train, she falls asleep and has a strange dream of her ancestors. In the dream, she is in a desert where she meets Paul, who tells her their backstory. Long ago, their ancestors sacrificed their children to the leopards. The souls of the children grew inside the leopards until the leopards became human. They were gods then, and Irena and Paul are part of an incestuous race. They can only make love with their own kind. Otherwise, they transform, and before they can become human again, they must kill. Paul then shows her their mother, and they give her the message to return to New Orleans. The next morning, we see Alice out jogging. It's getting late, and she stops at the gym for a quick swim and a change of clothes. As she is getting undressed, she hears a growl. Afraid, Alice jumps into the pool. Suddenly, the lights go out and the growling gets louder. Alice begins to scream. When the lights are turned back on, Irena is standing there. The receptionist hands Alice her robe, only to find that it is torn to shreds. Alice calls Oliver to warn him of her experience, but Oliver is too charmed by Irena, who has just returned and is taking off her clothes, letting him know that she is ready to make love. Afterward, she turns into a panther but leaves before she can harm Oliver. She is spotted near the bridge. SWAT teams have been called to corner the panther. Oliver and Alice arrive. Despite their presence, the panther gets away. Oliver goes looking for Irena. He finds her in human form because she has been killed. Irena begs Oliver to kill her. Oliver refuses, so Irena asks him to free her by making love once more. "I want to live on my own," she says. Oliver binds her arms and legs to the bed, strips off all her clothes, and makes love to her. In the final scene, Oliver stops at the new panther's cage at the zoo. It is obvious that the recaptured panther is Irena, now trapped forever in her panther form. Oliver reaches through the bars and strokes the docile panther's neck. Did this story spook you out? Let us know in the comments below. For more horror movie recaps, subscribe to our channel and we will see you in the next one. Fear awaits you.